Position over submission. You hear this a lot in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 1. You're creating space to transition, or 2. You're taking advantage of your opponent's blunder. A very good time to escape submissions is when your opponent begins to gun for a finish. A good submission artist minimizes this, but we're doing something a little bit different today. We're watching amateur fights, courtesy of MFL, specifically the event MFL20. We're watching Bagautdinov versus Hilali. I really want to emphasize that these are amateur fights, and I'm not here to necessarily hold them to like the same standard as professional fighters. I'm expecting to see mistakes and honestly see risks being taken, as that's kind of the excitement of a lot of really good fights. There are 3 scrambles I want to look at in this fight. The first being the very initial takedown straight into mounted guillotine. The second being just a clean takedown to side control. And the third being the overhook Haragoshi. Very, very clean takedown. Right from the get-go, we get a really aggressive start from Bagautdinov. Despite having a beautiful takedown and transition straight into mount and into a guillotine, we can see that as he's going for the attempt, there's a little bit of space being created here that allows his opponent to work and eventually get out and work back to his knees. While we're not back at square one, we're still quite a ways away from the floor. I like the fact that we're setting expectations. You make one mistake and you've almost already lost the fight. That's a good place to be if you're the aggressor here. After we see that we lost the position in the first takedown, we get incredible patience from Bagautdinov here. The moment he lands the takedown, lands the side control, he takes his time, works the knee on belly, and eventually just rides out the mat time. This is critical in amateur mixed martial arts. These are 3-minute rounds. Professional fights, as you see in bigger organizations, are 5 minutes. I wouldn't say that that's easier. 3-minute rounds doesn't mean that you just have less, you don't have to work as much. If anything, it means you have to work faster, which can arguably mean you're working harder. On top of that, tiny mistakes in the middle of a fight in a 3-minute round can basically cost you the round. With a 5-minute round, you might have a few more seconds to actually work, get back to your feet, and build your base up. In a 3-minute round, that could be maybe about 90 seconds, which is almost all your time gone. The takeaway here is that just by getting a takedown and riding out a little bit of mat time and kind of burning the clock, you're storing money in the bank for if you want to take risks later in round 3 or even towards the end of the round, depending on where your opponent is. Finally, this is actually the 5th takedown in the fight. I would actually implore you to go watch the entire fight on the MFL's Facebook page. But this 5th takedown was money for me. Bonus points for airtime. Bagautdinov gets the huge Haragoshi with the overhook and lands straight into mount. At this point, we can see that Bagautdinov's gotten comfortable with his opponent's reactions. This is the 5th takedown. He knows what his opponent's capable of and what he's going to do. And honestly, if you've been thrown 5 times or taken down 5 times, that's honestly exhausting to be able to get back up and work to your feet. Unless you got a really good regard going, that will chip away at your stamina. As you see an athlete or a martial artist or a fighter get more comfortable with these takedowns, you can actually start seeing Bagautdinov feels better about posturing up, and he starts actually landing ground and pound. I derive a lot of joy in watching amateur fights because it makes you appreciate professionals when you start watching the skill discrepancy in amateur fights. It's a bit of a mixed bag depending on your matchmaking. Now, that's a topic for another video in itself, but when a fighter starts developing confidence mid-fight, you see the big high amplitude throws, the big moves, you see the exciting stuff that we all crave and watch, which only makes it more impressive when you bring it up to like elite level professional athletes still pulling off the same kind of style moves, right? If there's a lesson to take away from these fights, I would be asking myself the following. Am I drilling takedowns to secure positions? Or am I just drilling takedowns for the sake of taking someone to the floor and not really prioritizing what happens in the aftermath? Am I being overly aggressive in my submission attempts? Sometimes we get greedy. We want to get the finish. The finish isn't everything, right? You can't win by decision. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, sometimes it's the more intelligent approach. And have you ever considered being on the receiving end of these big throws / takedowns? And have you considered how much stamina it requires to get back up? Have you put the practice in your own time and drilling to actually work on getting back to your feet after being dumped on the floor? These are things to ask yourself in your next practice and class. Otherwise, amateur fights are a lot of fun to watch. Big shout out to Maz of MFL for letting me use his content. I look forward to the next event. So until next time, guys, cheers.